Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Perform Happy podcast. My guest today is a former international elite male gymnast who has got a ton of experience as a collegiate superstar, who told me recently that he is in his mental health era. And I am so excited to talk about that today. Sam Phillips, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rebecca, for having me. Hi everyone. The short introduction, I guess. I'm Sam Phillips. I'm currently a gymnast at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. I just transferred from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, where I competed for them for 5 years. Um, I just got back on the elite stage, competing at U.S. championships. But before my collegiate journey, I was a national team member, national champion, and all of that. So I have experience with that elite world and growing up in that elite world with that training. And then obviously a little bit here and there in my collegiate journey. But yeah, so
Yeah.
and I'm from Los Angeles, California. So,
Oh, same. SoCal.
oh, nice.
Well, yeah. So, okay. So, gosh, where do we even begin? Would you tell us kind of how you fell in love with the sport to begin with?
Yeah, so I guess it's very similar to everyone's story, really. I grew up in a family. I have two older brothers. We're all separated by 2 years, so I was the youngest of three. So it was a very chaotic household. Both parents were working, and so my brothers were always doing every other sport, like basketball, baseball, football. My dad coached their football team, track and field eventually, soccer. And so I was always on the sidelines, just kind of doing my own thing, playing with the other younger siblings. And they're like, man, we need to get this kid into something. Like, we cannot just have him like sit by while like everyone else is doing something. And they thought to themselves, I mean, he's already flipping, he's already rambunctious, he's already high energy. So let's put him in the gym. I did a mommy and me class, and then like after, it might have been the same day or maybe like another class, they're like, okay, like we're gonna transition now away from mommy and me. Like, moms, get off the floor, and the gymnasts can do their own thing. And I remember I was like super upset. I wanted to be with my mom. But then like once I calmed down, wiped the tears, and I like got in the gym, I like felt immediately at home. It clicked, and I just like loved it from there. And so that's when I started, recreation. They're like, hey, kind of talented. Went to level 4, and then moved gyms where I was at Gymnastics Olympica in SoCal, and then I just flourished and did my thing. Yeah.
And was it just a totally smooth ride all the way to collegiate gymnastics? Were there any speed bumps
Honestly,
along the
like
way?
pretty much. I was really blessed to just, I guess, just be naturally gifted, and the gym quickly became such a second home environment to me that like I would flourish when I was there. Even if I was having a bad day or whatnot, like I wanted to go to gym because that's where I knew that I could like express myself in ways that my younger mind couldn't really comprehend. So I think I was really blessed to just have that journey growing up, and everything clicked like level 5 regionals. I won, and then Future Stars development team and national champion, and it just all kind of went smoothly. Yeah, until I will say my second half of my junior year, and then my senior year in high school, which one could say is like the most important year for recruiting. I got injured. I broke both my growth plates in my shoulders. So that's like when I started growing, changing. Both my grandparents are 6'1" and above. My dad's 6'1", so I'm 6 foot currently. I was 5'3" back then, and so it was very tough. And going into college was actually my hardest year in my uh, gymnastics journey. I didn't make it to U.S. championships because I was just coming back, and I took like a whole summer season off, and basically took all my senior year off except for like the last 3 meets, state, regionals, nationals. So that was the toughest part of my journey, and for have that to come at the end was kind of upsetting, but it kind of set me up for college where I could just get there, heal, brush everything off, kind of like revamp. So
Yeah. It makes me think of my little brother. He was a high level gymnast too. Same thing. He was 5'5" his junior year, and now he's 6'2", which,
yeah, it's
I look back, I had the same thing. I quit gymnastics at 14 and then grew 6 inches in a year. And I was like, oh, late bloomers. But now knowing what I know about nutrition, I'm curious if you chalk it up to late bloomer or if you might have been underfueled unintentionally through your training.
interesting. That's very interesting that you say that. That brings up a good point because I think I did go through, that was one of my changes I went through in college, was figuring out how to actually feel myself. I was like 10, 11, 12, 13, like eating salads and like borderline starving myself just because I knew that I needed to be light and like I couldn't eat like any snacks. Of course, now I know that snacks are so important in your meals. Like the nutritionists are like breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks in between. Get your body going, to get your metabolism going. You need that extra little fuel and those extra nutrients to like keep your mind good and your body good. And so, but back then I didn't really have the education. I didn't know that. And so I definitely was under feeling, I was eating like lean cuisines like at that age. Like no kid should be really doing that. So
Mhm.
um I have never thought about that, but that makes so much sense. And
Yeah.
it was when I came to college that I'd eat like maybe a heavier lunch and I thought, oh my God, like, this is gonna make me so heavy. But then I realized I was like, no, I actually kind of feel like stronger. Like I can withstand more because I'm like feeling substantial and like not firm. I don't know. Yeah, I felt more substantial and like energized. Like I could withstand my own body. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, so much under education on that stuff. Even, you're significantly younger than me. And there wasn't any information about nutrition, even not that long ago. So the fact that you
mhm.
then were able to, like, your body actually got a break because of your injury, during which you could actually grow, could have maybe been part of your success even. So I'm always looking for silver linings, right? And I
Yeah,
wonder
and
if that
it's
was one.
it's so complicated with that topic, like growing, like you said, like my body was growing, gave me time to rest. And I think that's what's so difficult with gymnasts is that we have this mentality that like there are no days off. Like you
Mhm.
take a week off of gymnastics, it's gonna take you 3 weeks to come back. And so when you're going through growing pains, your coaches and yourself, you're just like push through. But in reality, maybe that break is actually more beneficial and it will make the growing last not as long because it's not being put up with barriers of like, why am I pounding myself every day when my body's trying to grow? And so I think that's like something to look at is like, should kids be being pushed when they're growing, or should they take it as a time to like kind of like rest, take a step back, and then attack it once their body is like level and their systems have like equated to like a stable level. Like so.
Yeah. Yeah, which I'm sure, coaches are like, but what about the competition schedule? That's like the question I always get. What about the schedule? And it's like, well, if she grew 3 inches and can't do a cast handstand right now, it's like we're not going to yell. We're going to be like, okay, this is what's up right now with this body. If he isn't feeling right on the bar because he grew, like, cool, back it up and work some progressions so that you
Yeah,
can
100%.
learn the new body. I mean, so
Hmm.
so you had this huge growth spurt. How did that affect your training? You said the first year of college was rough. What was that
Yeah,
like?
definitely. Like I went and got an x-ray. I think I was having groin problems the summer of my freshman year in college, and the doctor was like, how old are you? I was like 17, about to turn 18. And then he was like, your growth plates are still open. Like you're still growing. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought I was kind of done with that. Like, because I grew from my beginning of my senior year of college, or sorry, high school to freshman year of college, I grew around like 4 inches. So I thought I was like done, whatever. Um, but yeah, luckily I was able to have my coach at Nebraska, my assistant coach, who was my direct coach. He really took me through it. He made sure to tell me, he was like, hey, you're growing. You're at a point where like you can't get frustrated. Your body has to relearn these skills. And anything from you think it's just taps and high bar, which are like the biggest thing because like you're long, your body bends differently, whatever. But even swings on P bars, the timing's differently from when you get to the bottom, your hips, how much you bend the bar, everything, your circles on horse, your rounded back hamstrings on floor. Like you need to realize that this is going to affect everything. Like a half an inch to an inch is like a mile when it comes to like taps and milliseconds of like swinging. So he was really good with that. He educated me on it and was able to like foster an environment where he could just like have me take steps back and relearn skills while still progressing. And so that definitely I think helped me throughout my freshman year, set me up for like my success later on in my college when I'm 6 foot now. but now I know how to like adjust, and I know what kind of body type I have, and what skills and what techniques are useful for my body type.
Yeah. Now, did anyone ever kind of write you off during that phase? Did you ever feel like, oh no, I peaked, or have any kind of, negative mindset around that period?
Um, Honestly, I think a lot of it came from within. I think a lot of it was self-doubt. I was upset, because I came to college being a national team member and all of that, and I wasn't up there. I wasn't competing to the standard of which I knew I could. I was recruited as an all-arounder, and come sophomore year, I was competing two events. Um, and so I just was very, but everyone believed in me, and yeah, people, my coach, was just like, trust the process, trust the process, trust the process. But I felt really down on myself. I was like, is this like all I'm gonna get out of my new body? Like, is this all of me? And then, we reached that point where it was stabilized, and I started to flourish and get back to who I was my junior year of college, where I started competing all around. I started being on five events for the lineups and everything like that. So, um, yeah, I would say a lot of it was self-doubt. Some of it here and there was, I don't know, me trying to be confident in myself, me trying to like vocalize my confidence and say the right things, and people kind of like shutting me out because of what I was doing right then. But I was like, I know what I'm doing right now in my heart is not like, you think this is what I have got, but it's not. Like, I know what I'm capable of, and I know what I can do. So, um, yeah, took a while for me to like really quiet that like self-doubt voice in my head.
Yeah. Well, and it makes me think of, so many 14 and 15-year-old female athletes kind of in that same. So it's really interesting that you had that phase as a
Mm-hmm.
freshman and sophomore in college, where we see more of those growth spurts kind of like 14, 15. And a lot of the time people give up on themselves because they don't have that thing inside that goes, no, I know I'm going to get through this.
Yeah.
Where did that come from for you?
Um, Three places. I feel like it really came from like faith in God. I am spiritual, and so I just really trust. I was like, I would not be here if like there was a purpose. There is a purpose for me being here, and I literally just have to have faith. Like, faith is so huge, and faith is like trusting the process and just being unconditionally in love with like where you can be and end up. And it's got to be unconditional through the good and the bad days. It can't just be on the good, because you need faith on those bad days. Like, that's why faith is there. When you're feeling down, when you're feeling miserable, when you feel like you want to give up, like, that faith is almost like that light at the end of the tunnel, and you're like, no, like, I trust that I can get there, and I'm here for a reason, and I know what I can do. And like, that has built my physical sense of faith, like my credibility, but also like, and then on the other hand is like, I know what God has in store for me. Like, this is not all for nothing. And then the second area was definitely my coach. He was just always like an ally for me, my like the number one person in my corner, could go to him for anything. And he just voiced the belief that he had in me and like what he knew I could do, and just pushed and pushed and pushed me. um and just kept, in those moments. Like, I remember junior year, um I before my first meet, I'd never been so prepared for a year. I was i was feeling so good entering season. I was a Big Ten gymnast to watch. I was written to do all around throughout the year, and like, I was an all around gymnast. I was on four events. Like, I was finally at the place where I wanted to be. And I remember before we left for the first meet, I like broke down and I started crying. And he was like, why? Like, what's happening? And I was like, I am so confident, but like, I'm so scared that I'm not gonna live up to the standard of like what I set out for myself. And he was just like, no matter, like, you've done the work, no matter what you do, like, like, look at how far you've come. Like, I'm so incredibly proud of you. And like, no one expects anything from you except you just being yourself. And that's when you do like your best gymnastics, being yourself. So I'm going on a tangent here, but that's just an example of how he's just supported me and always believed in me. And then number two is just like, or number three is just me. Like, you got to have faith in yourself. You got to have you got to have yourself at the end of the day, and you got to have that intrinsic motivation to be able to pick up your bootstraps and be like, I'm going to walk this and I'm going to do it. So I guess those are the three: God, my coach, and me. Like, I'm a very like I'm a very like wear my heart on my sleeve. So like I will tell people I'm confident, like I believe in myself, because if no one does, like you got to have you. So sorry, that
Yeah.
was such
Well,
a long-winded answer, but
it was amazing. And I'm so inspired. And so a lot of people with big dreams, the
Mhm.
elite athletes of the world often have kind of an image in their mind that they're like, that's the thing that I'm working for. And I'm not giving up until I get that thing. And you kind of alluded to that you're like, I know what's possible. I'm in love with the future. I'm in love with this idea of what I can do. Did you have a concrete idea? Was it something that you were like, this is the picture of how I will know I arrived? Or was it something different?
I mean, I think growing up, especially a gymnast, every kid pictures like that moment being them winning gold at the Olympics, them standing on a podium at the Olympic Games. And so that was it for me. And when I was younger, I was like, oh, I'll be 18, like perfect eligible, 2020 Tokyo Olympics. And then I quickly realized I was like, that's not gonna happen. Like I'm not there. And then it was 2024, and then I broke my ankle. Um, and that just pushed things back. And again, I was like, I'm not there. And then that made me think like two surgeries later, and I was like, am I at the point where I can even go for the Olympics? And I think it's okay to have a picture of what success looks like, and it's okay to have that to change. And it changed for me multitude of times. And it's still possibly going to change. I kind of had a goal of making the Olympics, and now I'm like, you know what? I'm going to focus on NCAA right now. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And that's okay, because I've accomplished so many goals within NCAA that like the only thing left would be, Olympics. But I can look back and see everything I've done that I loved, and I've still been heavy goals on my heart that I've accomplished. So I think it's okay for goals to change, and don't have that picture be um an end all be all for all the decisions you make, because I'm just like, then you're just kind of, I don't know, it has to change, and you have to adapt to your different surroundings, I think. So
Yeah.
we'll see. The next one's in LA, hometown Olympics, and it kind of was like, and then the new code, 8 skills, easier on my body. It kind of was all seeming like it was kind of meant to be. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe 2028 is meant to be. I'm just now back on the elite stage. I competed at championships this year. So like got my foot in the door. So I was like, you know what? Maybe like God put this on hold for me because he was waiting for this like kind of like perfect path. So we'll see. I'm gonna see how my body feels after this year. And if I want to go for it, I'm gonna go for it. If not, that's okay. I still did so many things I wanted to do. And that one goal is not my life. It's a goal that I wanted to do, but it's not a goal that I needed to do. So
Yeah. Yeah. This conversation makes me think of there's these two or three girls that I am working with right now who are in the same position where super talented, in love, obsessed with gymnastics, hardest worker on the team, and they've had a string of injuries. And all they ever wanted was college gymnastics. That's it. Since their moms literally were gymnastics, college gymnasts. And so they were like college or bust, college or bust. And now here they are, junior, senior year, and doing level 9 skills and trying to train up to 10 and just like behind, right? Because of the injuries. And I know, not even specifically for these girls, but for anybody, for any athlete out there who's like, uh, the life hasn't been fair and I didn't get what I wanted. If I don't get my college experience, it won't be worth it. Will it have been worth it? And so if you don't, obviously I'm going to be in LA cheering for you and we'll see what happens. But if it doesn't materialize, do you ever have that feeling like, oh, well, what was it all for? Or who have you become as a result of the not perfect path that you've been on?
yeah, no, I mean, again, luckily I was able to have a great collegiate year. I've all Americans. I've been I'm a Neeson Emery finalist, and um Big Ten team champion, Big Ten medalist, Big Ten first. I've gotten all these accolades. At, like the only thing left, honestly, is national champion individual Big Ten champion in college, and maybe that's it. But still, the rest are pretty goals that people work their entire careers towards. So no, I think if I don't go to the Olympics, I won't say like, was that worth it? Because I've been able to to achieve so many goals, work so hard for them, and the connections I made, the stories I've gained, and like the people I've touched are just like unimaginable. And so, that's the silver lining. Like you look at the material, yeah, sometimes the material's not there, but everything else, the things that you can't see, the work ethic that you've learned, the friendships you made, the stories that you've been able to tell and you've experienced, the thrills, the joys, the highs, the lows, and like everything like that. Like I wouldn't trade it for the world. So I think it's important to like look at everything else, because usually that one goal in mind, it's like such a huge picture. But then you really think it's like, wait, that's like one thing. But everything else, like look at everything else all throughout the years of what you've done and what you've been able to go through. And it's like, yes, it's worth it. Like 100%. So
Yeah.
don't get like super hyper fixated on that one thing, because it's just one thing. Like I promise you.
Yes, and that also it relates to I talk to kids all the time who are like, "I lost all my skills. I lost all my skills." And I'm like, "Okay, tell me the skills that are giving you trouble." And they rattle off like 2, maybe 3. I'm like, "Oh, so you have all the rest of the skills just
Yes.
fine for competition. You could go compete every other skill." Like, I can't even tell you how many skills that would be through 4 routines or 6 routines. So we're just talking 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay. That sounds okay. It's like we
Yeah,
forget that you actually are having a little trouble on a couple of skills, but there are a lot of phenomenal skills in your repertoire and also ones you haven't even tried yet that might fit that goal just as well. It's like we get
exactly.
so kind of stuck on what isn't working or what didn't happen and somehow erase all of the good things, which it seems like you're kind of the opposite, where you're really able to tune in and see the good.
Hey, that's only because of these past, my second half of college. This is you got to learn it. This is a learned skill. This does not come easily or naturally. Like I definitely had to learn. But yeah, it's so true. Like what you say, I think we're so caught up, especially gymnasts, and being perfect. And being perfect means having all your ducks in a row. 100%. And so if one thing goes missing, you focus on that bad thing. We get off a turn, the coach doesn't say good job. The coach says your knees are bent, your toes are pointed. Like we're constantly being judged. And so like we as athletes are so laser focused on making everything perfect that if one thing goes, that's like the whole world, because we're like, that's not perfect. We need to have that in to make it perfect. And so it's like we're so hyper fixated on what's wrong instead of like focusing on what's right and what's going well. And that is something that I had to learn. It's still this year, like this month, I just talked to my sports psych person. I meet with him once every week, and just saying that how I'm like taking it step by step and focusing on the good and like highlighting the good and taking it all in, and like so I'm still learning about it. It's tough.
Yeah, I was gonna say, teach us, Sam. Teach us your ways. How, what happened in the second half of college that allowed you to get to this perspective?
My ankle breaking. So after my junior year, when I did all around, I was back to doing all around. I went to US classics to qualify for championships. My ankle broke on my floor routine. Um, and so came back, had to get surgery, but it was gonna be good. Like I was gonna be back to tumbling in November. Like I was gonna be good for season. And it was healing miraculously very quick, and I was having a very great recovery. And I did not take that with a grain of salt, and I just like went, go, go, go. And the bone separated again, so I had to get another surgery in December. And that was very tough, so I had to sit out a season. And I really had to take into perspective and say, okay, like if I'm sitting out this season, then I have to do everything in my power to support the team in the ways that I am not used to. I'm a work ethic based leader, always have been. In college, I did find my voice. Um, but now I couldn't compete, and I couldn't travel with the team on some travel meets, and I couldn't be on the floor. And so I was team captain. I was like, okay, I'm gonna give my all then to this team emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and be them if they need anything. And so that's kind of how I turned like a bad thing into like a great thing. Okay, I can't be the best gymnast for them. All right, I'm gonna be the damn best leader I can for them then. Like if they need, I was getting them energy drinks, like stretching their shoulders, packing their bags, doing things for them on and off the competition floor, huddles, helping coaches with like decision making. Big Tens, I actually did travel as a coach. I was on the podium. I was one of the coaches on the podium at one time, the only one, like getting them ready, getting my teammates ready for routines and stuff. So like I made sure that I was there for them 110% because I couldn't be for them gymnastics wise. So I think, like you said, seeing the silver lining and saying, okay, this happened to me. How can I sell this to myself as a good thing? How can I switch this and be okay? I'm gonna make this worth it. I'm not gonna make this like moment in my life just this moment. I'm gonna make it so that it means something and it helps me in the long run. So that it helped me my leadership, viewing the sport differently, and then coming back, we started to view my own gymnastics differently because even then I grew again a little bit, like got bigger, just like finished off, kind of put the cherry on top of growth, like filling out my body. And so we were able coming back and having fun with gymnastics to like get my skills back and learning new skills, kind of able to we're able to approach gymnastics differently. Like, okay, starting now, since you're doing basics, like do them cleanly. I was never viewed, I'm gonna say viewed as the cleanest gymnast. So like, let's start now. Let's do everything tight toes, tight knees, feet together, and figure out some fun skills, some new skills that I can approach while I'm getting my old skills that, are good for me. So it just allowed me to view the sport in an entirely different angle and love everything about it that wasn't gymnastics. So then once I could do gymnastics, it was all I could ever ask for. Like last season, it was like, I wish I could be on the floor. And so this past season, it was like, I'm on the floor, I'm competing. There's nothing to worry about. Like, this is what I wanted to just have fun. So going through those lows force you to look at it from a different angle and force you to like, we got to sell this to ourselves. This cannot be for nothing. I cannot sit out a season for nothing. Like, I'm going to take something away from this. So,
Mhm. Yeah, that makes me think of like the way I kind of teach kids to deal with disappointment as I think of it like a wave. And so the higher the expectations, the higher the wave. It's like when you're going and you're like in tears because you're like, oh my gosh, what if it doesn't go well? Because I've
yeah,
prepared so much. The wave gets higher and higher. And then stuff happens, a disappointment, like you have an injury or you have a fall or something. The higher the expectations, the bigger the fall. And then you have that big, feelings. And I imagine like this kid being pummeled by a wave of emotion versus a kid who's surfing it.
100%.
And the surfboard is the wisdom that you get from it. And so you have to feel the feelings. You have to. You have to
Yeah,
be like, I can't believe I got injured. I can't believe I didn't make the team. I can't believe I didn't get the scholarship. You get to have the feelings and you get to give it all of your emotion and do the grief. Then the sooner you can get on that surfboard of wisdom and figure out, okay, who am I in this? Can I be a leader? What else can I do? What else did I get out of this? That's when you pop up and you just start gliding and you can start
100%.
catching the next wave.
You got to ride the wave. You got to ride the flow. And that's, I tell people like, and that's so good because you can't ride the flow too if you're still carrying on that grief. Like that's why I tell people like you have to go through it. Be upset, be angry, be mad, but not for a long time. Like let yourself feel it fully. So then once you decide to get back on that road and start trucking towards like positivity, like you can't be carrying any of that. So once you
Mhm.
decide to do that, you need to let it all go. So
Yeah.
that's why I tell people, I'm like, because I heard this quote from Beyonce, like after an upset or whatever, I give myself 24 hours to like fully feel it, like fully just be depressed and sad and angry, fully feel everything. And then after those 24 hours, it's gone and I'm moving on. And so like I think that's so great because after Big Tens this year, it was a very disappointing Big Tens for the team. We just won Big Ten regular season title and we were going to Big Tens like hoping to win and we just had a bad meet and then personally I had a bad meet and we all came back just kind of like what the heck. And so that Sunday I just like allowed myself to fully just like wallow in it, feel it, whatever. And then after that I was like, all right, NCAA is next and I'm coming for like revenge. So 100%, I love that.
Awesome. Okay, now you talk about having a sports psych, which I feel like is such an amazing advantage of being a collegiate athlete is you have
Mhm.
access. Like it wasn't always that way. And I think, every collegiate team, every professional team has access to mental health support, which is incredible and just so great for performance. What are some of the techniques or tools that you have applied in your gymnastics that have been the most useful for you?
Well, I guess like different people have different issues, so like they'll use different techniques, you know. Some people think too much, some people don't think uh some people don't think enough, I guess. So for me, it was all about like being present and being loose. Sometimes, of course, on theme of what we're talking about, my goals are like what I wanted to happen get so wrapped in my head that I forget about like what I'm doing now, and I forget to handle like my business now. And so I would go to a meet and I'm like, oh my God, I want to do this, I want to win this, I want to win this. And then I just get so caught up in my head that I forget what I'm actually like, how I'm actually supposed to compete and what I'm doing. So it was just be present. And when I'm being present, when I'm being loose, I'm allowed to do the gymnastics that I do in training. But when I get, when you get so caught up on the finished product, you forget about like the importance of the ingredients. And so for me, it was just all about being present. I had a mantra this year was being present, loose, grateful. Attitude of gratitude. When you're just grateful to be there, the disappointment is less because you're like, I'm just so glad I'm here and like grateful that I get to compete, grateful that I'm in this position, and like whatever happens, happens. Being loose, it's like you're not tense, you don't change your skills. When you're loose, you're allowed to flow. I do the best gymnastics when I'm like happy and dancing, and like that's loose for me. Like that's when I'm just like not even thinking it's muscle memory, you're just like, oh, I just stuck that. Like I just boom, showed that off. Like I'm so loose. I'm not tense and holding back or like being sporadic. And then being present is just being where my feet are, focusing on the moment, don't focus on the pressures of what I want to happen. Just do my thing and the rest will happen.
Yeah. Well, and that can also be on kind of the micro level of if you're worried about a dismount, then you're not doing your routine properly in the moment because your mind is in the dismount and then you miss something and you don't notice, you don't
Exactly.
know why you're off.
And it
Like,
was so crazy because like when I was going through, I was like, high bar is like one of my best events, but sometimes I can get like very nervous competing it. It is a very nerve-wracking event to compete. And so I was just telling my sports psych last year, I was like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I'm just like not, I'm so nervous of falling on the high bar routine that I like hold back and I don't do the high bar routine that I do in the gym. And she's like, how many times have you fallen on that routine in the gym? I'm like, well, oh, like once maybe I messed up, but it wasn't even like a fall. Like I caught close maybe. But yeah, like I've been hitting a lot. And she's like, all right. So why are you nervous? Like you have the numbers to back you up. And how do you like what do you think about when you do that routine in the gym? I'm like showing everything off, being loose. She's like, all right then. You know how to hit the routine when you're showing off, when you're like ready to fly. So why in competition are you changing it and being tense? Like, of course you're gonna mess up. Be like, you can hit that routine going big. Like that's how you hit the routine. So go big in comp. And I remember I did that one meet and I was like, oh, I came back. I was like, I went big. I got a good score. Like I hit, I boomed the set. Like at the highest. And she was like, yes, like if you train going big, why does it change when you go to a competition? No, still go big because that's what you're used to doing. And so that's just like, I don't know, when that's just what I've learned. And when you go to competition, everything can change, but like it's not. It's exactly like practice. Like I promise you.
yes. Well, that's a great way for kids out there to like find your pre-performance routine is well, what are you already doing that's working? They're like, I'm not doing anything. I'm like, well, you're doing something. There's something
Yeah.
happening that's setting you up for success in the gym. So if you're just talking with your friends, if you're not taking it too seriously, great. Do that in practice. If you are sitting and visualizing, if you're taking deep breaths, great. Do that in practice or in meets. But if you're not sitting in practice, visualizing, imagining, focusing, doing all the stuff, you don't have to go do that at a meet. You
Yeah.
don't have to add a whole bunch of stuff just because it's now important. Then you're just telling your mind, oh, it's she's doing this stuff. He's doing this stuff. We better get nervous now. You know?
Yes. And that's such a good topic. And that's something that I learned this year because I was like, I finally, it was something that was going over my head. I was like, I don't want this to be true. And I told her, I was like, I think I'm like, is this a thing? Like, I think I'm hyping myself up too much before me. And she was like, yes, that could definitely be a thing. And I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm already a high energy person. I'm already very like dramatic in my head, cinematic. Like, I put a lot of pressure on myself. And so listening to these like hype up songs, like I'm ready to go to war, I think might be putting too much like energy, too much commotion in my mind. She's like, that's definitely true. She was like, I would. And so we ended up coming to the conclusion that like the music that I listened to was just too much like I'm getting ready for war. Like take a step back, just listen to feel good, like pop music, or just like music that makes you feel good, music that makes you like lighthearted and fun. And I did that and it worked. I was like, okay, like I know my new ritual. And so, yeah, I think figure out the type of person you are and figure out what you do in practice and don't just change it for competition just because you think you need to like come in with this Mamba mentality. Like, if you don't have that in practice and you still excel, great. Don't try to put that on because you're probably going to just change and put too much pressure on yourself. If in practice you come in with that laser focus and you're like, I'm ready to work, and you go to the meet, you're like, okay, don't be nervous, just have fun. It's probably not going to work for you because you're used to like being laser focused. You're used to like hitting it hard, you know? So figure out what you do in practice, what works, and just like copy and pasting it for the competition is so important.
Yes. Okay, I'm curious, do you do any kind of tracking or journaling? Because this along these lines, I always love for people to increase their awareness. They're like, I don't know what I do before practice. I don't know what I do. Do you do anything that tracks so that you can pay attention and increase awareness?
So I did journal a bit. It's tough for me to like, I'm a very go, go, go person. So it's tough for me to like really stick with it. I did a lot my junior year. I do read a devotional in the morning, which is kind of like a journal, but like I'm reading it more like so it's like a different theme to think about each day. And then with my sports psych, usually like I leave the meeting with like three goals or like homework for the week. And so it's like mental checkpoints or it's like mind notes that I'll take. And then the next week when I go in, I'll like say, okay, so I tried this worked, or I didn't do this, or I did this and I whatever. So I'll like journal in my head and I'll keep like mental notes and I'll like constantly think about it. Um, I've been thinking about including journaling in my morning routine. It's just tough because some mornings are like go no matter like how or what you want to do. So we'll see. But I do more mental journaling than physical journaling.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the important thing for every human who wants to excel at something is to pay attention to what's working and
Hmm.
what's not. The more clues you gather about, wow, that went well. Oh, it was random. That's not going to help you. That went badly.
Yeah.
Oh, it was random. Instead, you track it back and you figure out, well, what might have contributed to that? And then you have another good day. Well, what might have contributed to that? And you start to notice, oh, my nutrition or my sleep is always a part of it. Or when I'm putting pressure on myself about an upcoming meet, like my practices fall apart. Oh, how interesting. And all you're doing is just collecting data. You're just being a scientist. And then you go, okay, sleep, nutrition, stay present. And for you, it's like loose, grateful, faith.
Yeah.
And then
And then
you're
it gets easy because you see the pieces. You're like, oh my gosh, I just haven't been focusing. Like 100%. I agree in it. And when it clicks for people, it just feels life just feels so much lighter. I swear.
Yeah. And it's not because you had this smooth path that you've had these clicks. It's the injuries, the setbacks to me that seem like they've been your biggest source of wisdom to get you to where you
Yes,
are.
100%. I mean, it's when you're at your lowest, that's when you open up to your greatest change, you know? I love that quote because it's so true. When your back's against a wall, you're forcing yourself to just see everything in front of you and say, okay, like there's nowhere I can go but up. So like let's go up. And there's no
Yeah.
shortcuts. Like, so yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Oh, Sam, you're so cool. I'm so inspired. And I know so many people are going to get a lot out of this. And if they want to follow your journey, where's the best place for them to find you?
Instagram, Sam underscore Phil, PHILL. I post a lot. I love keeping people up to date with stories and yeah, just my Instagram and um I'm very transparent on there. So if you have any questions too, shoot me a DM and I would love to answer. I might answer in a day or two, but I will answer. I will get to it. But yeah, that's kind of where I like post my journey and everything. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, I will be following along. I'm sure others will too. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Of course. Thank you for having me on, and I hope that people, can take a little bit from this. But yeah.